Everyone. Today is Tuesday, March 23rd, 2021. I'd like to welcome you to the Abington School Committee meeting. And at this time, I'd like everybody to stand so we can do a flag salute. Okay. And on three. 1, 2, 3. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So before we move on to the reading and approval of records, we would like to first acknowledge that tonight is Lisa Augusta and Jackie Abrams' last night on the committee. So it's been a long 3 years of service, and looking back, I can't believe that it's been only 3 years because it seems like a heck of a lot longer. So no one would have imagined 3 years ago what this committee would face together, the hefty decisions that were weighed on all of us from the get-go, the losses we would endure, not just as a committee, but as a community, and the challenges we would face through this pandemic. This has to be the longest year of our lives, one that could not have been the same without the two of you. This is an all-star cast. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. And I've worked with a ton of people in this town and been on a lot of committees. This one tops them all. This group has so much heart and guts, and they're the most thoughtful group to represent this town. There's not been one scenario or idea that has not been said over the years. None of us keep quiet or hold our tongues. We all say what we think and feel, but with so much respect for what each other says. I call this the A-team. The people before you, I would go to bat for every single time. I truly believe we would not be sitting here, and we would not be the same committee today if there were two different people sitting where you both are now. So thank you for volunteering, and thank you for spending so much time with me and this committee and everyone in this town. I know how much you both love everything about Abington, and I appreciate all that you've done. So next month we will have 2 new members. I look forward to working with them. I know we will have new challenges and do what's best for Abington, but I will never forget this A-team. So thanks, guys. Peter?
Could I just say to both of you, it took courage, it took hard work, determination, most of all, putting kids first, and putting kids first. It's what you're about. It's in your DNA. It's who you are, and I don't believe that you know how to be anything else other than courageous and for kids. And in my career, this has been the most challenging period of time that I've ever had to work through. And you both have delivered every single day. I know you've had sleepless nights. I know that you spend your time continuing to reflect over and over again about what's best for the children of Abington and how to best serve them. And I want to echo what Wendy said and tell you personally, I couldn't have worked with better people through such a crisis. And you've done more than just worked on this crisis. There's been work on the lives and the activities of kids and their social and emotional well-being in schools. You both have high standards. You're also about teaching and learning first and foremost, student safety, and with the sincerest gratitude for every moment that you've given us. I just want you to know how much I appreciate your service, and most importantly, on behalf of the kids that we all serve, I thank you.
Definitely.
Well, thank you so much. Of course, you made me cry. I guess I wasn't even thinking it was our last meeting until just a little while ago. And Jackie and I are both like, I think this is our last meeting. I think this is it. I'm like, I think you're right. Like, wow. And I guess it has been a long 3 years, but it's been a great 3 years. And I'm just thankful to have been part of this committee and been with everybody together. I think we've done so many great things, and I'm looking forward to see, what Abington's going to continue to do for our kids. And I know that we're all in good hands here with this committee and the administration we have in Abington. Everyone is so dedicated to our schools and to our community and to our students. And I'm just so happy to have been a part of it. So thank you.
Ditto. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Great. Let's move on, right? So we have the reading and approval of records from February 23rd, 2021. If someone would like to make a motion to approve.
I just sent a message to Teresa earlier. I just saw there was a little typo on one of the pages, and she was correcting it. So just to have it be known.
Okay.
On page 3, it just said like asymptomatic instead of symptomatic when it was talking about the COVID testing. So she just was fixing that.
Okay.
But aside from that, it was good.
Okay, so would anyone like to make a motion to approve the minutes from January 26th as amended?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Next, we have the consideration of revisions to the 2020-2021 Abington High School Improvement Plan.
So I have a couple of items with regard to the return to school, and I want to frame this by beginning with, I've separated these two. First, the MOU piece, and then a report on progress about the return to school. Before I begin, it would be wrong not to acknowledge the following, because without them, none of this would be possible. So there were a couple of goals here that I'm going to repeat a couple of times. Safety is number one. Meaningful and engaging experiences for children is also our goal. And that this is going to be a one size fits all. Again, there are allowances for different people to make different choices, but people have worked hard on this plan, and yet I know that this is probably not going to satisfy everybody. But I want to thank some people for the work they've done, because without the work that people have done, none of this would be possible. We wouldn't even be able to consider these things. I know that it's been a long year, but we really are, and don't forget it, in the middle of a historic and an epic time in our lives, and heroic things are actually being done for people every single day in the face of the challenges we have. And here are the heroes that I want to thank tonight before I begin these two sections. I want to thank the school committee members. I want to thank our maintenance staff, the custodial crews. I want to thank our administration. I want to thank the food service personnel. I want to thank transportation. I want to thank the administrative assistants in every single building and its central office. I want to thank our paraprofessionals and our tutors. I want to thank our teachers and our technology office, our nurses, the Abington Fire Department, the Highway Department, the Police Department, and the Building Department. And if I have forgot anyone, I apologize. But as we describe the things in the following two pieces, it took all of these people to put this together. And not the least of which, I want to thank our students, because they are the why that this work was done, so that we can do the best that we can do for the children of Abington. All of these people put that group first. So in your packet, you have the full in-person MOU with the Abington Education Association. The association has previously approved this. And again, our goals here are safety, meaningful and engaging experiences for our students. With the full in-person return, which you've already voted for, K through 8 of April 5th and 9 through 12 of April 12th. This, I won't read this to people, but I want to highlight a couple of things here. This maintains that there will be 6-foot distances whenever masks are off. Mask breaks, snacks, lunches. There'll be a 3-foot distance, seat to seat, for our students facing in the same direction when in classrooms and when outside of of classrooms, not on mask breaks. They'll continue to maintain minimally a 3-foot distance. We're hoping for more. We'll certainly take as much distance as possible. I'm going to remind people to please stay home when they're feeling ill. The quarantining that we are likely going to see will be, it's reasonable to assume, twice what we're seeing now, because we're having twice as many people in the same square footage. So I don't think that that's an out of the ballpark estimate. For grades K to 4, live streaming will stop when the students come back full in person 5 days. I want to just briefly touch on why. Those are our youngest students that need the most flexibility in their learning environments. And if they can read under an oak tree sitting on a mat, that's where we want them. They get the benefit of that experience. Those 25 students that are in school can't go outside and read under a yoga mat if there's one person at home live streaming. It's not that we don't care about the one person at home. It's just the best that we can do for the most students in terms of the learning environments. There is no Wi-Fi out under the oak tree, and there are a number of other similar type experiences that I don't have to get into. I think you can imagine it, that don't provide the best opportunity for us to live stream, and certainly it's nowhere near the best way for our littlest learners to be receiving their education. 5 through 12, there will be a continued live stream for students who are quarantined, medically in need, or coming from homes with immunocompromised family members, and students otherwise not able to be rostered as fully remote. Because please remember, we're going to maintain our fully remote students and classes, both at the elementary and at the high school. The focus of this live stream will be the students that are in person, 5 through 12. Students at home will be able to watch and listen, and we acknowledge that the educator's main focus will be on the in-person students. The teachers acknowledge that the students learning remotely will need to have reasonable access to their teacher and content, and the teacher will take attendance and provide a minimum of 2 check-ins for understanding per class. I mentioned earlier that the virtual academy, the fully remote students will be continuing. People will be able to continue with that for the rest of the school year, but they will go to 5 days. And what follows is scheduling information by building that I certainly don't need to review with people. If they have questions about it, please ask. If you have questions about any of this, please ask. Just so that the community knows, or if people watch this later, the committee has spent countless hours on this. The 2 people that negotiated this with the administrative team, Wendy and Jackie, have spent even more hours on this. The association leadership has been thoughtful, and we appreciate the cooperation in terms of being able to put this together, again, for the students that we serve. Just want to make sure I answer any questions. And then, whenever it is that the committee's ready, or after whenever it's appropriate, ask you to consider this with a vote.
Hey, Wendy, I don't necessarily have a question on this, but I wanted to, I think and I don't know if this matters for records, that's all. I think when you started, I think you might have read off of the minutes from the last one and called it consideration of revisions to the Abington High School Improvement Plan. I just don't know if it matters for a record anywhere that we're just talking about Peter's report for consideration of full in-person return.
Did. I had that one in front of me. So we're talking about, we're talking about the consideration of the student full in-person return memorandum of agreement, MOA, with the Abington Education Association.
I don't have any questions.
Looks like Samuel has one or something.
Is everybody okay with that? Like, do we have to revisit anything though?
No, Samuel has a question.
Okay. Sam needs to be taken off of mute.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good, thanks. Mr. Schaefer, so you mentioned that with the fully in-person learning, coming back on April 12th, quarantining amongst probably going to double, and reasonably so. That's obviously expected. I also know that even if you do produce a negative COVID test, you're still advised to quarantine for the full 2 weeks. I was wondering if that also applied like working students, because I obviously work. So would that also apply to like I wouldn't be able to, I would basically have to quarantine for the full 2 weeks, not just from school, but also like work and stuff.
Not if you provide a negative test after you've, and Felicia's going to check me on this. After 5 days, you're tested, you could return on day 7 with a negative test.
Okay, I was just
How'd I do, Felicia?
Close. You can test
day
on,
8.
you can test on day 5 and you can return on day 8. And you can also, for example, go back to work on day 8. If you're quarantined, it's quarantined from school, work. You're supposed to stay in your house, not engage with other people.
Okay, I was just wondering because I had to quarantine a few months back and I wasn't sure if I could go back to work, so I just quarantined for the full 2 weeks.
Not 2 weeks. If you get tested, you can return to your normal activities if you're asymptomatic on the 8th day after your exposure.
Okay, thank you.
And it's not a full 2 weeks anymore anyways.
If
Correct.
it's 8 days if you get tested, it's 10 days if you don't get tested, unless you're symptomatic.
Are
Excellent.
you looking for a motion, Wendy?
Are you done, Peter?
That was it.
Okay.
I want to make sure, I cover everything that needs to be covered. In my next section, I have an update on the plans. So
Okay.
I'll cover a lot of other things there.
Okay, so right now, we're asking for a motion to approve the memorandum of agreement with the Abington Education Association for student full in-person return as presented.
I'll make a motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Excellent. And so next is the update and report on student full in-person return.
So I just want to make sure I do a good job of making the community aware of what to expect. The PowerPoint presentation that I provided last time is on our website, and all of that information remains to be accurate. Nothing has changed from that report. Again, the 6 feet with no mask, 3 feet with a mask. I want to really ask people to stay home when not feeling well. New bus tags are going to be coming out next week for people. We had to do the bus routes over again. The traffic is going to be difficult, especially at 201 Glenowitz at our middle and our high school. I want to ask people to think about arranging with their kiddos about where they could drop off and where they could pick up. You don't actually have to get them all the way to the front door. You could drop them off in different spots on the campus and make turns out of that campus that are more convenient for you without getting into some of those longer lines. Also, again, when you pick your students up at the end of the day, meeting them at different spots would also probably help families rather than getting in those longer lines. You are more than welcome to get in those lines if you wish. Just trying to save people some of the congestion we're going to experience. Importantly, if in the beginning all the students are showing up late, they're not going to be counted as late. Once we get in and get rolling and we get the system down, and if your son or daughter is dropped off 10 minutes after everybody else, well, then they're going to be marked late. But please don't stress about that, especially if you're coming in between buildings. Also, don't stress. We know you're coming. We will not go home or leave your child unattended or make them feel badly that you're coming across town to try to get them from one school to another. I know that both of those conditions are stressful for people, but you have to know we'll take care of them. This is going to require people to be patient in terms of the traffic and the movement. The Abington Police Department has been working with us around some of these things already. They will continue to do that in the coming weeks as we plan for their return. We've had a number of families want to come back from the virtual experience. There's been some movement that way. And you need to know that coming back from the virtual experience, you could get placed into a multi-age classroom at the elementary level. If we have, I can tell you the numbers, for example. If we have 5 first graders and 7 second graders, they could be placed in the same room together rather than having 2 separate classrooms. We will have to, I couldn't tell you at this point exactly where those breaks will be because we still have open deadlines for people to make those changes. Our administrative team, our building principals, assistant principals, guidance offices have been working around getting those students appropriately placed. If there is a delay in getting people placed, it's only because we want people in the right place to start rather than getting bounced around. If we didn't do this, we would have had to have taken students away from their existing teachers that have been in the hybrid model with them all year. And so this situation is a far better situation than asking students to change peer groups and change teachers in April. You will see tents around the district. Minimally, there are 2 at the Beaver Brook, 1 at the Woodsdale, and 1 at the middle school. Over the last couple of weeks, 200 desks have been assembled and are being put in place at the elementary level, and 150 8-foot tables with chairs for seating. Remember, we've got to feed about 2,100 students every day. And so when I had that list of people that I was thanking, this was no small undertaking. They've come and put together plans for all of that to take place. We've hired to date 11 paraprofessionals, 4 custodians, and then 2 multi-age classroom teachers. If you are interested in a part-time custodial position, please let us know. If you are interested in a recess paraprofessional position, please let us know. And I believe we're still looking for 1 or 2 more paraprofessionals in the district. Deadlines. I want to make sure people are aware. The principles all published by building, but the deadline for movement would be, that's not to say that people couldn't move after that, but it's going to take a longer period of time to move people after that period, after that deadline, to accommodate them. Again, we've got to make a plan here for over 2,000 students, and we want to make sure that we get them squared away as best we can. So K-8, those forms that were emailed home are due on the 25th of March, and 9 to 12, they're due on the 31st of March. Just want to remind people of that. And then I want to ask my committee members if they've got any questions or if there's any other pieces of information that we should make people aware of that I've missed.
Peter, I have an attendance question. Someone had asked me, now that we're going to be back full in person at the high school level, someone was asking, will that bring back buybacks, or are we're encouraging, students to stay home when they're not feeling well. Is the attendance policy going to be the same, or is students going to have to buy back days if they reach certain absences for the rest of the school year?
I'm going to kick it to Jonathan Bourne, and while he's thinking about that, I'm going to say for the remainder of the pandemic, our emphasis is on keeping people home that don't feel well. We have to encourage that, and we'll have to continue that throughout this year. Jonathan?
Yeah, Lee said the pause that we put into place on the attendance policy would continue, as Peter mentioned. So there would not be any need for buybacks or credit loss attached with attendance starting April 12th, at the end of the year.
Okay. That's what I thought, but I just wanted to confirm. Thank you.
Appreciate the opportunity to publicize that also.
I also have a question. When Lisa asked that, it made me wonder: are we gonna have Wave Week Wednesdays again? Because I missed them a lot.
Sorry, I muted again. Sam, the Wave Week Wednesdays are not going to happen from April 12th to the end of this school year, but they're certainly open for next fall, not knowing what the fall brings. So we will be 5 days a week, with the exception of Memorial Day weekend and the last week of school.
That's so sad.
Or happy, depending on how much you like students and your principal.
Well, I like sleeping until 8 in the morning. That's so nice. I used to look at that all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to make sure I do a good job. If any more questions. Okay. Let me move on to Reid's Board of Directors.
Yes.
So this is, I'm asked to be on this board to represent the district's interests every year. This and the next one also at North River Collaborative are the same. It's not a paying gig. It's really it's really to help be mindful of these are programs that we use, our students go to. It's to be mindful and help provide some oversight for those programs for our students. So I'd ask, if, unless the committee has any questions, if you would take these next two in two separate votes, appointing me to both the Reid's Board of Directors and the North River Collaborative Board of Directors.
So at this time, we need a motion to appoint Peter Schaefer to serve as the Abington Public Schools representative on the Board of Directors of Reid's Collaborative in accordance with Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 40, Section 4E, as amended by Chapter 43 of the Acts of 2012 for the 2021-2022 school year.
I'll make
a motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor? Aye.
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 Perfect. And then the next one is a motion to appoint Peter Schaefer to serve as the Abington Public Schools representative on the Board of Directors of North River Collaborative for the 2021-2022 school year.
I'll make the motion.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
The next one's a pretty simple one. Also, I'm going to keep rolling, if that's okay. Hope that's not too loud. My wife's home. She's putting him outside right now. He's a good dog. Just a dog. So the next one is North River Collaborative requesting that they're able to increase the limit on the capital reserve account from $700,000 to $1,250,000. This doesn't put more money into the account. It just gives them the ability to raise the amount in the account when they have more money in the account. Right now, the threshold is $700,000. So a vote isn't needed here. What's required is that I tell you about it in a meeting, and if you don't vote to stop it, then it gets to happen. They are trying to save money to increase the size of their middle school program for the 7th and 8th graders at the North River Collaborative School, so that they have to do less borrowing, and the money that they do borrow, they get a better bond rating for. So it's really a responsible approach to a facility need that they have. So unless anybody has any questions, we have just fulfilled the obligation.
Peter.
Thank you.
So next up, we have our student representative, Sam, with updates. Sam's over here. Thank you.
Okay. So first update would be the seal of biliteracy, otherwise known as the SAM test. The Spanish teachers provided the students with numerous resources for preparation, and I was told that you can take it for more than one language as well. I asked this at the last meeting or 2 meetings ago if we could, but I received confirmation from the Spanish department as well. So looking forward to that. There was a National Honor Society meeting that was carried out virtually, which was about an hour, I think. Mr. Bourne can correct me on that. And the NHS members are now well aware of what to expect moving forward. But the most important thing that students are talking about, I guess, would be the full in-person learning. Personally, I'm excited about it. I've been looking forward to this for a while now. But majority of the students would prefer to continue with the hybrid model. They're particularly nervous about the seats in the science classes, which appear to be really, which would make the students kind of closer together than usual. But I was also told that you guys were still working on that, so that's about all I have.
Thank you, Sam. Anybody have anything to say? Nope. Awesome. Great job, Sam. Thank you. So next, report of the Director of Student Services, Mr. James Robbins.
Excellent. You can hear me, Wendy?
Yeah, you're a little quiet, but.
Okay. Maybe a little better now?
Yes, thank you.
So there are actually two reports that I had to go over tonight. One of which was regarding our, one of which was a change to our policies with respect to the Policy Review and Update Subcommittee, and one of which with respect to the Social Emotional Learning Subcommittee. Wendy, is there one that I should go to before the other, or is either one fine?
I think either one's fine.
Okay.
Chris? Yeah.
All right, sounds good. So I guess I'll start first with some suggested policy changes that have been submitted to the Policy Review and Update Subcommittee, which Wendy, of course, is yourself, and Chris. This harkens back to something I had discussed with the committee about 2 meetings ago, which is just that we are in the process of our Educational Stability Review, which is DESE's review of school district practices on how they're supporting vulnerable populations who are subject to a lot of school changes and moves. So specifically the homeless population, students in foster care, and military children. So DESE has been auditing our policies with respect to these children. And they have suggested that we update our policies so that we are using policies which are now considered best practice. So previously, we had one policy which was focused specifically on homeless children, and it also pertained to foster care children as well. What best practices now indicate is that we have a separate policy for students who are homeless, a separate policy for students in foster care, and then an additional policy for military children. So the updates in these policies are as follows. So for homeless children, it's now the case that homeless children have mandatory access to their school of origin, which just means that if an Abington child becomes homeless and ends up sheltered in a different community, they still have mandatory access to Abington. In the past, our policy had indicated that it was to the extent feasible. So our new policy makes it so they have mandatory access. In addition, the new homeless policy indicates that we have dispute resolution rights through DESE. So if there is a family who is making use of Abington schools, but for some reason a member of our administration just sees it as no longer appropriate, we can always seek arbitration through DESE to say whether or not that child ought to continue to have access to Abington or should seek education in their sheltered residence. So those are the updates with respect to the homelessness policy. And I'll just very quickly give the overview of the two other policies. So the policy with respect to children in foster care indicates that children who are placed in foster care have immediate access to either their school of origin. In other words, if a Abington student enters into foster care, they can continue to have access to Abington, even if their foster care home is in a different community. On the other side of the coin, they may also have immediate access to the sheltered education school system. So, for example, if the foster care home is in Whitman, they would have access to Whitman-Hanson schools or Abington schools. There's a caveat to that. So when a student enters into foster care, the school districts have to work with the DCF casework. to participate in what's called a best interest determination meeting. So at these meetings, the school of origin, the school system related to the foster care placement, and the DCF caseworker have a meeting with the foster care parents to determine as a group where the student ought to go to school. So just our new policy would indicate that we would participate in that process on behalf of foster care children. Last up, it's best practice indicates that we should have a separate policy with respect to military children. Just by virtue of restationing of parents, they're vulnerable to disrupted education. So DESE is advocating that we have a policy that makes it so it minimizes disruption in their education. So just a few features of that policy is that as the District of Abington, when we have a military family move in, we ought to accept temporary records as opposed to insisting that we have formal school-based records, because that can often slow down the process for families. Additionally, we can delay receipt of immunization records because at times that can be another thing that slows down the policy, that slows down enrollment. It's recommended that we allow excused absences for the children of military families. And last up, that we honor course placement and test record of the previous school district when military children move in. So those are just some highlights of the new policies that have been recommended. I believe the proposed policies are probably in your packets for full review. Mm-hmm. So I would just like to propose that we adopt those updated policies.
Okay, great. So we have to do those separately. We could do them at this time, each one, and then we'll go back to you, James, if that's okay. So we need for the homeless students enrollment rights and services, we need a motion to approve the homeless students enrollment rights and services policy as presented. Anyone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And the next is the educational stability policies. So we need a motion to approve the educational opportunities for military children policy as presented. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And the next is the motion to approve the educational opportunities for children in foster care policy as presented. Anyone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
And a second?
I'll second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. James?
So that's excellent news. So that indicates we are at the state of the art in terms of serving students who are vulnerable to a lot of education dislocation. So thanks to the committee for that.
Thank you.
What I'm to speak to next is the social emotional learning subcommittee. And before I proceed, I just want to check with Peter, Lisa, and Jackie to see if there are any sentiments they'd like to share before I share.
I peeked at what you're sharing, and I think there may be some repetition, James, but I'll just speak for a minute if that's okay. So I feel like this is a subcommittee that Lisa and I have been part of since it started. It's probably the work I'm most proud of that I've participated in on this committee. And I just want for the public to know a little bit more about it. We've presented on this subcommittee a couple of times, but I just want to recap a little bit of where we are and where we've been. The goal of this subcommittee, and I think James is going to get into this a little bit more, was really to step into the shoes of the children or the students in our district and really take a look at what it feels like to be a student in the Abington Public Schools. We do a lot of planning and logistics around how do we plan for kids and teach kids, but this was really looking at, like I said, how does it feel to be a student in the Abington Public Schools? And specifically the work kind of led us to pan out a bit. So think of like a camera lens. We looked collectively from pre-K all the way up to 12 at what does that look like for a student who starts out in the pre-K and graduates as a senior. And obviously each school has its own individual culture, but we were really hoping we could kind of create some common threads or some patterns that even maybe expectations in our district in terms of how we think and talk and plan for the social and emotional well-being of students in our care. It's sort of ironic that none of us could have anticipated that this work would become so important and necessary post-pandemic life. And I think that, you know, part of this is just a plug from me to you, whoever carries on this work, to just maybe dig in a little bit more. I think that we're going to survive like and get back in soon and leave in June. And I really worry about what does like the next school year look like for our kids. And I think that might be when we see, you know, we're going to try to play catch up in terms of what they need to know and learn. But I think I watched today in my district, the kindergarten first and second graders returned to all in person, and we debriefed at the end of the day. And one of the takeaways was that we didn't think enough about what it would feel like to come back. Like we assumed that everybody would feel good and be excited because we were excited to welcome kids back. And we actually had quite a few K1 and 2 kiddos who had a tough day. And that was, I think, unexpected for all of us. So thank you to Lisa, who joined me in this work, and big thank you to James Robbins, who has like led this work, and to all of the administrators who have dug in and helped us to kind of pave this ramp from pre-K to 12. And James, I hope I didn't steal too much of what you're about to present, but thank you.
Oh, not at all. You said it more succinctly and nicely than I could have. And Lisa and Peter, any sentiments to share before I just switch to a quick PowerPoint?
No, I think I'm good. I think Jackie stated what needed to be said, and I know you'll continue to, you know, say what the rest of it. So I think I'm good.
No, this committee's been, you know, I'll say it now, we were all concerned about social emotional learning and always have been, but this really brought it together and looked at it more strategically than we've ever looked at it before, so that we could have a meaningful foundation for the work that we didn't have before across the district. So that's been good for the kids we serve. So thank you.
Thank you, Peter. And then, so what I've done is just I've prepared a very quick PowerPoint just for a, you know, visual aid of that just explains kind of what the approach was of the SEL subcommittee. I'm going to share just a recent highlight that speaks to a gap that I had referenced back in November, and then just kind of just articulates where we're at in our buildings, just to demonstrate that, you know, at each level. What may have not been true a few years ago is that that students are now receiving systematic exposure to social emotional learning instruction. And so I'll just spend a few minutes doing that. So just give me a moment while I share my screen.
And while James is doing that, I can talk about, you know, this work continuing. The high school right now is going through the accreditation process, and they're doing, obviously, you know, about the vision of a graduate. And that's something that we'd like to talk about across all grade levels, across all schools. Something we were going to do with some strategic planning, and then COVID hit. So more to come on that in the future.
James, this is the prettiest PowerPoint you've ever made, by the way.
Thanks. Yeah, I've been making a lot of progress on that.
You're making everybody else look bad too.
Yes, I already set the bar so high. I'll try to tamp it down next PowerPoint.
No, don't do that.
Yeah. All right. So when it comes to the inclusion of like the social emotional programming throughout the district, really all the thanks goes to the inspired staff members and at each building, in the work of those staff members and the synergy that was created between the staff and the administration to create just meaningful social emotional learning experiences for the students, like day in and day out. So really all the credit for SEL goes to staff at the building level. With that said, I think this, just from my point of view, as someone who's just had to kind of track, oversee, and direct some progress in this area throughout the district, I found this subcommittee to be just especially valuable in helping our district make progress. Because some things that I just want to point out that have been especially helpful to people like, you know, Peter and I, who've just had to work between buildings to see progress in this area, is that Lisa and Jackie have been able to provide just ongoing, you know, incredibly insightful parent input, and to just sort of give us a fuller view of how we can better meet the needs of our children. And just those insights have been invaluable just in terms of driving progress at each building. Additionally, just by virtue of us having this subcommittee, it's really kept administrative attention on increasing SEL, like over the years, even during a pandemic, when there were decisions that just seemed much more immediate and urgent. We were consistently reminded by virtue of the subcommittee of just to keep our attention on promoting student social emotional progress. Thanks to the input of Lisa and Jackie in this subcommittee, all the administration has worked on just building cultures in their buildings, or just creating cultures in their building that promote SEL exploration. Because as I said at the outset, really all the work comes to all the inspired ideas that teachers have. And what we want to do is just when a teacher has an idea, we want to make sure that they have the time, the resources and support to pursue it. So additionally, this subcommittee has been invaluable in terms of advocating strongly for access to SEL materials at each building. So by virtue of the advocacy of this subcommittee, it's made it so that building principals, myself, Peter, Felicia, Sherry, and so on, are working to make sure that our teaching staff have access to more research-supported SEL materials, which is why you've seen such wide rollout of Second Step across our buildings. Additionally, this subcommittee has been a strong advocate for making sure that our staff have access to high quality professional development on the topic of social emotional learning. And that's made it so that we've been able to provide professional development opportunities, including, bringing Jessica Minahan in to speak with our staff on opening day, and sending a wide contingent of our staff to Breathe for Change training. And additionally, one additional way that this subcommittee has helped us roll out SEL throughout the district is making sure that there's just been access at all levels. Because what's nice about Abington is that there is diversity at each building in terms of each building has its unique culture and way of doing things. But we wanted to make sure that there was SEL progress at each level. The subcommittee has been a strong advocate of that, and I think as you'll hear just in a minute or so, I think we've achieved SEL progress at each building. So what I want to speak to next is just some recent developments in terms of SEL programming. So at a previous meeting going back to November, I think I inadvertently had given the impression that there had been, say, less progress at the Abington Middle School. And that was actually just because I was tracking progress in two other areas. But as any member of the Abington Middle School would attest, there's just been a lot of social emotional learning activity at that level and a lot of enthusiasm. And I want to speak to just one area of recent development that I think is noteworthy. So thanks to the really hard work and diligent efforts of the Abington Middle School administration, specifically Matt McCurtain and Sarah Sawyers, they have introduced Wednesday social emotional learning homeroom lessons. So these weekly lessons are based on a growth mindset and habits of mind core sequence. And additionally, Sarah Sawyers has introduced some homegrown supplemental activities that incorporate student goal setting and mindfulness, so that each Wednesday our students are participating in just direct instruction and activities that pertain to social emotional learning. And it is the case that when we return, so right now this works handily within the remote day. But when we return to full in-person learning, the schedule has been created so that these activities will continue. So I just want to highlight this recent development that has come up as of January. And last up, just while there are just countless examples when you go from classroom to classroom of teachers really exploring and introducing SEL activities, I just want to emphasize that at each level, there are just ongoing, recurring SEL experiences for our students. And just to sort of illustrate this point, I've taken each building and just pulled out some of the important work that's happening. So when you look at our buildings from kindergarten to fourth grade, each day our students are participating in morning meetings that incorporate elements of like holistic wellness. So things like, mindful breathing and mindful movements, as well as responsive classroom materials. And additionally, some teachers are introducing second step curriculum during those morning meetings. So students are either getting direct instruction on SEL activities in the morning meetings or applications of SEL activities in through their morning meetings. When you move up to grades 5 through 8, as I'd mentioned, there's just the new exciting SEL homeroom instruction that's occurring on Wednesdays. But additionally, there are countless examples in our general education classrooms of staff embedding SEL practices in general ed content. So that means moving away from strict academic standards, and trying to build some some individual skills that are important for social emotional learning, such as self-awareness, self-advocacy and empathy in the context of general education content, such as like English literature activities. And then when you move through to grades 9 through 12 at the high school, there are a number of just embedded, there are a number of SEL activities that are going on that our students at that level are exposed to. So to highlight at first, each week students are participating in mentor meetings and bridge block meetings. And so what this does is it allows for stronger and more meaningful teacher-student relationships, and it allows our staff to monitor students so that if there are students who are struggling with mental health issues, they can be identified more quickly and connected to support. Additionally, most, if not all, of our teachers at that level are exploring embedding SEL practices and activities in their general ed content. This goes for history classes, English classes, and math. They're still trying to build those personal skills in addition to academic knowledge. And we have a number of classes in our course catalog that expose students to direct SEL instruction. So in our health classes that are mandatory for our students, they review a number of important SEL concepts such as like empathy and gratitude and coping skills. And then there's also a junior senior elective called Mind, Body, Spirit that offers a deeper review of these concepts. So that just shows just throughout the district, we're seeing a lot of meaningful progress in this area, and students at all levels do have the opportunity to grow in social emotional domains. So those were the thoughts that I just wanted to share with the group. Any questions or thoughts that I can address?
I don't have a question. I just had a comment to go back to the middle school for a minute because I just want to echo something you said, but I really want people to hear this, that I was shocked when Lisa and I were in one of our subcommittee meetings and we had kind of identified, not that there was an area of weakness at the middle school by any stretch, but just that, like, that's the point of the subcommittee, is for this alignment from pre-K to 12. And so we took like another look at, is there anything more that can be done? What I know I was shocked to see is, like, we were in the middle of a pandemic. I didn't think that the middle school was going to turn around and come up with, like, these lessons are not bought from a program like we bought for Beaverbrook or Woodsdale. Like, these are not prepackaged. Like, this is like the hard work of staff and administration at the Abington Middle School, who somehow, I don't know how, put these together and delivered them right back out to students. And I think this was said in the subcommittee meeting, and I just want to say it publicly, is we can want to do this work, and teachers always want to do the work, but without the stuff, like, how do I do this work for kids? It doesn't always happen, particularly in a year like this year. So I just want to highlight how impressive it is that you at the middle school were able to provide staff with the actual stuff to make that happen. So that's just a huge thank you to you both, and whoever else on your team helped with that, because it's pretty amazing.
I know that's appreciated, Matt. Matt was about to say something. I was afraid he was muted.
I thought I was, and it turns out I'm not. But thank you very much, Jackie. There has been a lot of work here, and I'd be remiss if I didn't provide a lot of credit with Sarah Sawyers, who is keeping herself muted wisely. But she has put in a ton of work on this, and our staff has as well. So I thank you for your kind words, and it's a good thing. We're going to continue doing it.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, James. We appreciate all your work, and to the subcommittee as well. Thank you.
Having spent half of my career as a middle school teacher and administrator, I can tell you that, kids have different challenges and different trauma in their lives, pre-K through, the whole spectrum. Middle school is generally the toughest time period in the life of our students, generally speaking. I don't know many people, if we did a show of hands, if they were going to repeat any part of their life, would want to go back to middle school. My guess is you'd get the fewest amount of votes. Adolescence and all that comes with it makes an additional challenge.
Thank you. So next up, we have the report of the Director of Curriculum, Instruction, and Assessment. Sherry?
Hi, good evening, everybody. I'm really excited to announce that we're going to have the nomination form for the Chester Millette Outstanding Teacher and the Educational Support Personnel that's going to be opening up this week. And I just want to say a special thank you to Danielle, who spent a lot of time with me. She had some great suggestions of updating the form and having it more user-friendly and more accessible for all of the parents and the students. So thank you, Danielle, for all of your help. As you recall, we had the Chester Millette nomination form on paper, and we're moving it to a digital format. So it's going to be online, which provides two benefits, as everything pretty much has gone online this year. So it goes right in line with that. But first, it's going to be easier because there's going to be some quick check boxes and some narrative space. You can type your rationale for supporting examples for any educator that you want to nominate. And of course, you're welcome to nominate more than one educator or one educational support personnel. And second, there's going to be no paper to be exchanged this year to drop off at Frollo or the central office during the pandemic. So it's something that basically you'll receive a digital announcement or a letter and a link to the nomination form, so you can go right on anytime you'd like to. It's also going to be available on our website this week. It's going to close on Sunday evening, April 11th at midnight, and it's going to be open for about 2.5 weeks. So again, you're welcome to make more than one nomination if you'd like. So part of the process is, in order to assure any anonymity during the review process with the committee, we need a week or two to be able to remove any identifying information from the forms at all. So we're going to be meeting with the committee the week of April 26th. Then the teacher and the educational support personnel, the people that win the nominations, will be announced on Teacher Appreciation Day on May 4th. So we're really excited that it's moving online. I think it'll be much easier and more accessible. And we highly encourage both parents and students to make nominations. So that's it. Any questions?
I just wanted to, sorry, sounded like there was some feedback there. I just wanted to say thank you for doing this work to get it to be a little bit more user-friendly and accessible for everybody. It was really important for me to acknowledge all of the hard work that our staff puts in, day out, especially for a year like this. I think I said it last year, what better year to vote. And then this year has been just as taxing on everybody. So just putting it out there, it's easy. Like she said, it's a checklist with a little bit of narrative. Don't shy away from writing a little bit about your favorite staff out there. So plug for everybody, students, parents, anybody, to put in good words for your staff, for your teachers. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Sure, there's going to be a constant contact sent this week or whatever to like open it up kind of thing to let people know.
Definitely, okay. Yes. And we'll also post it on the Abington website.
Okay.
Sorry, one more. Just also a plea to administrators to keep encouraging your students to vote too. I know a lot of the the nominations come in from parents, but I think it's extra special when the kids do the nominations themselves. So if there can be time made without forcing them to do it, that would be great.
I think I asked this before, Peter or Sherry. Do the nomination forms go back to anyone who was nominated, like regardless if you were selected as the winner or no? Do they go back to?
Yes. So generally, after everything is all said and done, then the teachers, everybody will receive the feedback that they got to put them on the nomination list.
Historically, it's gone in a flyer. There's been a blurb, and then people get to see. That's all shared with them.
Cool. That's nice.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Sherry. Peter, do you want to talk about anything in the informational items?
Thank you for the chance. I just want to highlight one thing. Jackie had asked that we give a breakdown of the CARES money, ESSER1, coronavirus prevention state funds, CRVF, the school lunch program. It's the money, it's the COVID-related money spent to date. And so Felicia's provided that under informational for people.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Felicia.
Felicia, is that top stuff the stuff that was submitted through the town and waiting to hear back?
Correct. Thank you.
Excellent. So our next school committee meeting will be April 27th, 2021. And some dates to remember are Wednesday, March 24th, which is a half-day professional development day for staff. Friday, April 2nd is Good Friday, and all school offices and buildings will be closed. Monday, April 5th, first full in-person return day for grades pre-K through 8. Monday, April 12th, first full in-person return day for grades 9 through 12. Monday, April 19th is Patriots Day. All school offices and buildings will be closed. Monday, April 19th through Friday, April 23rd is spring vacation. And Saturday, April 24th is town elections. And that will be at Beaver Brook this year from 8 to 6 p.m. Again, that's Beaver Brook. Where is that, Peter? In the gym? And like the first gym, the second gym?
I believe it's going to be in the Far Gymnasium.
Far Gymnasium.
The one closest to the softball field.
Excellent. Thank you. All right, everybody. So this is it. Okay. Can I get a motion to approve? Can I get a motion to close this meeting tonight? And it's Jackie and Lisa's last night, so not sure if one of you.
We should do the honors. I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Excellent. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Good night, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
Thank
Jackie.
you.
and
Thank you, guys.
Lisa.
Bye, guys.